Hello, and welcome to my Community Engagement for Social Change Conference presentation. My name is Vinny DeRazio, and I will be discussing topics relevant to substance abuse and its cultural relevance in America. Initially, America has many different cultures, vastly different from each other, and how they relate to substance abuse all depends on their ethnicity and also their family dynamic within their house. The problem is that in education, we tend to only have this blanket stance of how to address these issues. And without addressing how different cultures also relate to substance abuse and addiction, we're not really going to be able to help the masses of students who might be in the throes of addiction or substance abuse or witness it within their family unit as well. So the problem lies in being able to have a more conducive and more socially engaging program for substance abuse and addiction that can reach multitudes of cultures instead of just maybe one or two. Some of our causes, as discussed by Gaiman in his research, was some things like substance abuse by peers, low family pride, parents smoking at home, or deviant activity going on that the students are present around for and see firsthand. Another could be family substance abuse within with their parents or their siblings and things of that nature. So when a student sees a lot of this going on already at the house, they already have a lower threshold of what they think is acceptable out in society. If it's already true for them at home, it's going to be okay when they meet that uh, type of behavior out in society, and they might even cling for it or cling to it or seek it out because that's what they've known at home. That's what is familiar to them. Some of these effects, what we've tried to do in the education system, starting with the war on drugs and even up to the DARE program that many of us were a part of or have seen in the classroom, is trying to find a way to relate to these students. And the problem lies where these programs do not fully engage the student or fully reach them where they're at culturally. We can see there's a problem in statistics within high schools and middle schools, but they're not really reaching for specific communities or specific reasons why, or being socially um, inept with reaching the student where they're at. Another thing that could be that shows the effects of this is depending on what the students experience directly impacts their relationship with substances and the usage of them within their academic and personal life. So again, going back to that cause, seeing stuff at home and being part of a marginalized culture, which already sets this tone of having less than or being working harder or having not the social equality that native born might have, already sets them up for being something looked at as other than, where their family or their parents or the people in place of power in the worlds are using substance abuse or using substances and abusing them and having addiction to cope with their life. Therefore, their children who are their first generation and so forth are seeing this and living with this and growing up with this. The effects mean that their children and children of their children tend to see this as normal or part of how everyday life is. So when a program comes in and says that it's not normal and it's not correct and it's not okay, they might not necessarily take offense to it, but not really relate to it. And they won't really take what they're trying to give a fair shot. So as soon as they see that people like something like the DARE program, who's going to portray an addict or someone who's like homeless, begging for money, or is trying to scare them is what essentially they're trying to do. And then they relate to their family and they know they have maybe a uncle or their father or a brother or a sister who uses habitual cannabis. Or binge drinks on the weekends and does have an issue, it does have substance abuse, but it doesn't relate to that specific side of how their culture and how they grew up with that being. Instead of that scare tactic where they now are disconnected, where they don't believe that the program is valid because in their head, their parent or whoever relative or authority figure who's able to juggle their addiction or their substance abuse as well as hold down a job, as well as get up in the morning, it doesn't really make sense. So they tend to disregard the program and maybe see it as part of the main culture that they're not feeling a part of already also. So it also sets them apart and feeling away or outside of what is part of their culture and what they're going to deem necessary or relevant to pay attention to. Some solutions. So the Hispanic community in particular are the number one ethnic group in America right now that is being affected by substance abuse and addiction, especially within the youth. The idea is that it's being, the American culture has normalized drinking, and in our society and our media, seeing the teens younger and younger drinking and using cannabis use. And so the idea that when they have these programs that come in and say, no, 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 and then they're within their culture and their first generation or even immigrant coming in, it doesn't really mesh well. So they're not meeting what they need to. So there needs to be programs in place that can meet these students where they're at. The Hispanic culture in particular. The Hispanic culture also, for the past 20 years, there's been a lot of substance abuse research, and the reason for it is the acculturation being the most common factor for why. So they're trying, whether it be the student themselves trying to fit in, or even their parent or guardian who's having to deal with certain things, with maybe not being able to find a job or find work or being discriminated against, finds themselves using or in the throes of addiction or substance abuse to cope or to continue going. They are seeing that either within their family or their parent or their guardian, or they themselves are using substances to abuse and self mitigate how they're feeling within society that's kind of felt, and trying to acculturate, trying to become part of the culture and trying to just have some oneness with them. Some of the consequences are that the Hispanic communities predicted to be 25% of the American population. And if their youth, which will be grown adults at that time by 2050, if 25% of the Hispanic community makes up America, and since it's such a large majority of them having issues with substance abuse and addiction, there's underlying reasons why. Not just the fact that they have these addictions and that they are using, which is not okay and not good, but there's also reasons why, which is they're not feeling like they fit in, feeling like they're having to find ways to fit in or to relate to their surroundings around them. So if that's happening for the largest part of the ethnic group of our nation, then it definitely would be happening domino effect with other smaller cultures as well, and something needs to be addressed, which we have our call to action. So if you as a teacher are noticing, again, maybe your student is themselves using or even going through a parent or a guardian with addiction, it's trying to identify the ways that students cope. So if you notice they are using, if you notice that they are seem like they're having troubles with their studies, but not because of normal, whatever reasons they have it, because of maybe alcohol addiction or cannabis use, and knowing which ways to work with them, right? If it's something they need specifically, you need to relate to these students as much as you can and figure out if it's them literally using, and not in a way to kind of get them or to get them in trouble, but to see what that underlying reason is, right? So that underlying reason being, are they depressed? Are they having issues socially? Is that affecting their grades? Perhaps they have good grades, but you still notice that they're still apathetic about certain things socially, or having suicidal thoughts, or it could lead to suicidal thoughts. So identifying those ways that those students cope and what that coping means. If they're using, that's one thing. If they're also in the throes of having a guardian or a parent that might be using, and how they're coping with that also, which could be a wide range of things. And as a teacher, as an educator, you can start to kind of pick up certain ways that you can recognize of what's going on. Predicting the way the student might reach out or deflect. So if you know they are using, ideas that if they are using and they're not going to want to be on your side. They're not going to want to let you in or talk with you, because they will see you as an authority figure, and as not caring, or again, the idea that you're trying to catch them or trying to get them in trouble. So that in that sense, they may deflect. And it's really important to try to get them to understand that you are there for them, that you are interested in their social well-being, social societal well-being, and their mental health and mental their own well-being, as well as that you do want what's best for them. And if sometimes that might be more help that feels against it, or like getting in trouble, but the reasons why are more than just that. The other ways could be if a parent is, so maybe if they are clinging to you a little bit more, it might be because they're not getting that assistance at home, or that attention that they might be craving as a student or a young person, that's not receiving that from the parent. Another way that we can help is to evaluate students' experience to better relate to them. So again, taken away, not to say that you wouldn't ever go to the authorities, but that's not really what you're trying to. We're not trying to have the prohibition aspect of it. It's before that. We're trying to help the kids in the throes of it, that are already gone past that threshold of prohibition or abstinence and are in it or don't know, but also to preemptively figure out why these students are feeling this way. Why are these students finding the need to dabble with substance abuse, or to try to alter their own consciousness with alcohol or cannabis or things of that nature? And also so that you as a teacher can better relate to them, because if you know what they're going through, you can use your curriculum and your teaching and your rapport with them to better help them. um, if you keep it blanket statement and just have them, you're not meeting your students where they are, which it will be all differentiated across the classroom, they're more likely to not relate with you and not share their experience with you, or even let them help you when you really can, and have a kind of a duty to as well. So thank you very much for coming to my conference and your time for listening. Um, Nothing else. Have a great rest of your day.